Hey guys, and welcome back to the Blue Hour channel. We are going to be going bike touring today, so I already got the bikes loaded up. I got my med kit. I have the leashes that will attach to the bikes. I have bowl and water. This is filtered water from our own home. It is the water that the dogs are used to drinking, so I like to make sure that they're drinking the same water as they're used to, because sometimes different waters can make them a little upset sometimes. But I also do have my in case of emergency pouches right up here, and that is usually where I hang them in the truck for the dogs, unless they are in crates. Because the bikes are in the back of the truck, I'm not going to have them in crates this time, but we're going to go on an adventure today.
Good girl.
Since it was a bit too windy to catch the raw audio today, I've muted the trail noise so you can actually hear me. But even though it's quiet, there is a constant conversation happening between me and the team. In Bikejor, your voice is your steering wheel. You will see their ears twitch back toward me. That's them listening for direction. We use G for right and HA for left. And even though you can't hear it in this clip, we actually pass a distraction right about here. That's where the on by command comes in. It tells the dogs to ignore the world and keep their eyes on the trail ahead. Now, looking at my team, it's no secret I'm running Siberian Huskies. They're the classic face of the sport for a reason. They were born for this. But I really want to emphasize that you don't need a Husky to get started in bike-joring. Even though I love my sled dogs, this sport is open to any and all breeds with the drive to run. I've seen pointers, Jack Russell Terriers, Labradors, and even motivated rescue mutts have the time of their lives out here. As long as your dog is healthy, cleared by a vet, and has the right pulling harness, they can be a bike-touring dog. It's about the bond and the burn, regardless of the breed. And if you're watching my Huskies work and thinking, my dog would love that, but aren't sure where to start, don't worry. The gear is pretty straightforward. You just need a bike, a bungee tow line or a leash, and most importantly, a Y front harness, like the ones you see my guys wearing. The Y front harness ensures that their shoulders can move freely and they can breathe easily while they are pulling. I really want to highlight the harness for a second as well, because it's the most important piece of safety gear you'll own. The Y shape is critical because it sits right on the dog's breastbone, leaving the windpipe completely clear, and most importantly, keeping their shoulders free to move. If you use a standard walking harness or one that goes straight across the chest, it actually restricts their gait and can cause long-term joint issues. In bike-joring or other pulling sports, we want the dog to be able to extend their front legs fully. A proper pulling harness distributes the weight across their ribcage and chest, turning their power into forward motion without putting pressure on their neck or blocking their airway. Now, let's talk about the connection. You'll notice my setup varies depending on how many dogs I'm running. When I have a full team out, I always use a bungee tow line. As you can see, I have Harley and Bonsai running on a bungee tow line. With multiple dogs, there's a lot more power and jerk in the line, and that bungee acts as a shock absorber to protect their backs and my bike frame. However, when I'm just running one dog, as you have seen B is with Zeke, I sometimes switch to a standard line. With a single dog, the motion is often much smoother and more predictable, so you don't always need that extra give that a bungee provides. It really comes down to the weight, the power of the pull, and what feels most stable for you as the rider. The golden rule is, listen to your dogs and feel the bike. If you feel a lot of jarring or snapping in the line, that's your sign that a bungee is a must. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you and the dogs are moving as one unit. Now, one of the most important safety features on the bike isn't actually something you have to spend a ton of money on. You might have noticed the setup on my handlebars. That's our DIY antenna. You can definitely buy a professional bike-joring antenna, but we actually made this one ourselves using some PVC pipe, a bungee, some rope, and a climbing grade carabiner. The whole purpose of the antenna is to keep the tow line up and away from the front tire. If the dogs slow down, as you may have seen a few times already, or even stop suddenly, you don't want that line dropping into your spokes. That is how accidents happen. This DIY version works perfectly to keep that line up, centered, and out of the tire, proving you don't need a huge budget to have a safe, functional setup. It just goes to show that with a little bit of creativity and the right basic principles, like a safe harness and a clear line, you can get out here and enjoy the trails regardless of what equipment you are starting with. One thing to keep in mind if you're hitting public trails is etiquette. Because we're moving much faster than a hiker or a casual biker, I'm always scanning ahead. If we see another dog or a family, that's when the on, by, and easy commands are vital. We always give the right of way to others and keep the dogs focused on their job. It keeps the trails open and friendly for everyone. Now, I could talk about gear and commands all day, but honestly, the best part of bike touring is just the rhythm of the trail and the motion of the dogs working. So I'm going to stop talking for a bit and let you enjoy the scenery and the pace of the run. If you found these tips helpful, or if you want to see a full build tutorial for that DIY antenna, definitely hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. As we head back toward the trailhead, we transition to what I call the cool down phase. This is where I let the dogs drop into a relaxed trot or a slow jog. Just like a human athlete, you never want to go from a full-blown sprint to a standstill. It lets their heart rates come down gradually and helps prevent muscle stiffness. Post-run is actually the most critical part of the day, especially when it comes to preventing bloat, which can be fatal. I am careful with their intake right now. I do offer them water, but I limit the amount, giving them just enough to hydrate without letting them gulp down huge quantities at once. I also follow a strict 1 hour rule. No food an hour before we run and no food for at least an hour after we finish. This gives their bodies time to settle and ensures their digestion isn't compromised by the intensity of the workout. It's a small step that makes a massive difference in keeping them safe. Taking care of your team doesn't end when the trail stops. It's a 24/7 job. If you want more tips on how to keep your pulling dogs healthy and happy, or if you have questions about our cool down routine, leave them in the comments below. Thanks for riding along with us today, and we'll see you in the next one.